The Age of Sail, for me, is one of my favorite eras of all world history. Just imagine the thought process that went into actually building these big lumbering ships like the Santissima Trinidad, HMS Victory. They're just incredible ships. You go and you can see some of them nowadays, which is fantastic. I've never been able to do so, but one day I will be like a kid in a candy shop going and seeing one of them. But today we're going to be talking about steamships. And there's two right over there. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Anno 1800 Beginner's Guide series. Thank you all so very much for being here as always, and today we are going to be discussing steamships. Steamships essentially means that you're going to be replacing your sailing ships with these ones because these guys do not suffer from the same drawbacks as a sailing ship, being their speed increases and the amount of cargo they can actually take to and from. But the most important thing to really understand starting off is this being a relatively decent setup for steam shipyards. I have 5 right over here with a Harbourmaster office right in the back. And the thing that I want to stress now is you want to start really considering using some specialists with steamships and just the steam shipyards just in general. They are going to help you out so much going forward. You will not be able to use a steam shipyard, however, if you do not have electricity. Electricity must be connected and active to a steam shipyard, otherwise you're going to get this horrid icon saying missing electricity. We don't like seeing this, we don't ever want to see this, so make sure you have one of these turned on at all times. Now, if we were to go over here to the steam shipyard, completely disregard the guys at the bottom, I'll just remove them from now. When you start off, right, depending on what DLCs you actually do have, this might look a little different, okay? But your very first ship that you're going to see right over here is the cargo ship. And I've gone ahead and built every single one of them so I can show you what they look like. But the cargo ship is going to be the one that's going to replace your clippers and your schooners. This thing is a lot faster. Movement speed of 10.4 knots is relatively decent. And the fact that you have 6 item slots and 2 item sockets, 6 being for cargo, it really helps with mass transportation at this point. So that's why you want to consider actually utilizing those item sockets for example, propellers or specialists that allow you to have reductions on loading and unloading times. Because obviously you're going to be maxing them out, right? That's the whole purpose of this. I'll take you over to where I've actually built these ships so you can see them firsthand. But apart from that, you do also have your traditional military ships, being the battle cruiser, which is going to be a better variant of the ships of the line. A monitor, which, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, they are pretty okay-ish. I don't typically like to use them, but they're like a frigate type of an equivalent. And then you also have a Flamethrower monitor, which flamethrowers are insanely powerful against wooden ships, and they can be insanely powerful against the ironclad hulls, but they're not as effective. They will still dish out damage, and they can do crit damage. It's just you have to get close to them. You can outrange them very easily. Then you have your oil tanker over here, which this is the only ship that's capable of transporting oil from one island to the other. Okay, this is the only ship that you can do it. You cannot put oil in a cargo ship. It won't work. So let's go ahead and take a look at the ships up close. So right here is a constructed cargo ship. It does look pretty cool. If you have ship skin variants, then you will be able to find them in a similar location to the other ships in the previous episode where we discussed the sailing ships. And this is what they look. So this is part of the club one. This is the regal plating, and this is the red plating. This is your ship that you're obviously going to want to swap out all your initial ships for to start off. The only downside to this particular ship, however, for you at this point, would probably be the maintenance costs. The 500 for one ship, it can potentially break the bank. It really depends on how well your economy is doing. But I will tell you that there's another ship that the game has not told you about that you can get that's a lot better and a lot more effective than this ship, and it has like it only has 100 on the maintenance cost, and that is the Extravaganza Steamer. The problem with the Extravaganza Steamer is that you're going to obviously need a specialist in order to construct it. And at the end of the video, I will go over specific specialists in order to get some of these ships. The thing with the Extravaganza Steamer is that yes, you do have the same number of cargo slots, but you have one additional item socket, and its maintenance cost is only 100 coins as opposed to 500. Do note, in this particular ship, I just, as a test, went and put a whole bunch of these propellers in there. And these propellers, as you can see, increase the ship's movement speed. And also with the cargo slowdown. So in total, we have 25, a little bit over around the 30. I think it's 32, right? So 32% increased movement speed with this ship. And then as far as our cargo slowdown, we have minus 75%. Based off of these two. So like if this ship was actually completely full, it wouldn't be as slow. And then the epic propeller is also giving us a damage slowdown reduction. Essentially what that means is if this ship is attacked, right, what the game tries to simulate is actual damage. When it means actual damage, it pretty much means that the ship is going to go slower. There are going to be effects on the ship, like parts of it are burning, chipped off, stuff like that, and it's pretty much telling you this ship needs to be repaired until it can actually reach its full potential. But some of these items are capable of completely negating that to a point, right? So having a damage slowdown is definitely another specialist that you would want to try to get if you optimize this ship. Between these two, I wouldn't mind optimizing like a cargo ship with a faster propeller and a loading speed reduction item. But for the Extravaganza Steamer, you want like one of each. It's a lot better. You can even get specialists that have increased hit points and trade incentives with NPCs, so you actually get a better value. There are definitely stuff like that are possible. But there is another ship variant that is a part of the cargo ship group, pretty much, and that is the World-Class Reefer. The World-Class Reefer comes from the Docklands DLC, and I'm going to tell you right now, this ship is very deceiving. Why do I say that? Well, I'll explain it. The main reason why it's deceiving is because this ship is the best cargo ship to use international travel across seas. This thing goes at 200% on open sea travel. These two only go at 100%. So if you're trying to transport something from the old world to the new world or vice versa, right? You would want to utilize one of these. Heck, if you even put a propeller into this thing, it'll even go faster. But I would argue against that. In that situation, I would say get somebody who has like a loading time reduction or something into this one, because you only do have the one item socket for the World-Class Reefer. This ship's main purpose is to take things to and from different regions. So these two are meant to have interregional travel. So Old World specific, Cape Trelawney specific, heck, even New World specific. Just keep them in the region. They're a lot more effective there. And this one, across seas. That's really one good way of optimizing these ships, because I also have this problem. I literally did this in this campaign. This is, in fact, the Anno 1800 Expert campaign series. If you're new here and would like to check it out, the link is in the description. 160 plus episodes. I have been spamming the hell out of these, and I should not have been doing so because the maintenance cost is the most at 750, and you only, again, have the one item socket. It's the same. It's just a little bit faster on the interregional, or the world travel. There we go. The next one is the oil tanker. This is the only oil mode of transportation you are going to get on the seas, and you have no option here. This is just that one socket is for oil transport, and the maximum load that it can take at any given time is going to be 400. Very, very simple, basic ship. Epic voice actor, by the way. So now we're starting off with the military ships, and this is the Monitor. The Monitor, for me, is a ship that I just don't bother using in any war. Why? Because, to be perfectly honest with you, while it does look cool, and you do, again, have different ship skins to it, the Monitor is outclassed, okay? pretty much by other monitor variants, or the fact that it does not do enough damage. That's pretty much it. If it's meant to be a tank, it fails at that. If it's meant to deal damage, it fails at it. It's going to lose. The best way to use these, on the other hand, is to actually put like 2 or 3 together. They're the steamship equivalent of a frigate. Put them to your cargo ships and watch them protect them. That's really what you can do. Again, they do have 2 cargo slots, which is fine, and 2 item sockets, so you can go ahead and upgrade them a little bit. But ultimately, they're not fantastic, in my humble opinion, of course. This is, again, all my takes. If you have to go ahead and try it out and see which one works for you, what variants work for you, what your playstyle is like. Playstyle has a tremendous factor in every single thing about this game. You have to experiment. That's the most important thing out of anything of the guides that I can tell you. You have to experiment with Anno 1800 in order to learn it for yourself. Your guides are there to help you and help guide you along, but you have to take the personal route of experience. You also have this ship, which came out later on, and this is a Flak monitor. With the arrival of airships, which airships are another mode of transportation that we will talk about in a future video, the game introduced Flak monitors. Flak monitors cannot attack other ships. They can only attack airships, and they do a ton of damage to airships. So this ship is kind of worth it. Downside is, if you're not going up against airships, it's absolutely useless, right? It is essentially just a meat shield that's going to get absolutely decimated. And I have to also mention that each one of these initial monitors have 3,000 hit points. This one, if you look down here, so it's 22 damage per shot, and the attack speed is 0.2 seconds. So this thing is like a rapid fire. It's a Gatling gun on the top. So you can see that thing right there. And it'll keep going. But the thing that I would argue is that this being an absolute waste of time, because you can actually purchase a Flak emplacement and you can have it on your island and it'll be a lot stronger. You can have more of them. You'll also have island defenses, and you can even put Harbourmaster items to make them more effective than a ship. Okay. Next, you have 2 ships right over here that are Flamethrower monitors. We have the traditional Flamethrower monitor and the blue Flamethrower monitor. Now, what's the difference, apart from one being red and the other blue? Oh, great. This moron's back again. I will tell you that the difference is kind of on the minimal side. Again, it's a monitor, so you're not going to really be expecting a whole bunch. But they do also have less hit points than these monitors right over here. With these 2 being 3,000, these 2 are at 2,500 and 2,200 respectively. The reason for this is, what I believe is they essentially wanted them to be glass cannons, because this ship is capable of knocking out an entire fleet of wooden ships with ease, okay? Because it does a considerable amount of damage to wooden hulled ships. 510% is nothing to scoff at. It will melt them. And even when it goes against metal hulled ships, it'll still deal damage, but remember, they're going to deal more damage to this one. It is weak. So if you want to utilize these ones, first of all, you also have to factor in its radius. So if you actually zoom out, right, it's got a line that's really small around it. The circle is pretty small, as opposed to this one that's a lot larger with the Flak gun, and this one that's the typical monitor. Their radius size are twice as large. So you're going to have to get in close with these ones, which is why I'm saying not a worthwhile investment, in my opinion. I actually did come across a YouTube video a couple months ago of one guy that spammed the heck out of Flamethrower monitors and blue Flamethrower monitors. And I'm talking around in the hundreds, right? Against one port, he lost almost half to 3/4 of his entire navy. That's how weak they can be. They can be effective when dishing damage, but when they receive it, they're donezo. And especially when it comes to the blue Flamethrower monitor. Now, the way to get a blue Flamethrower monitor is, one, you're going to need the Arctic DLC, which the only way to build these things is with Arctic gas. That is a very, very precious resource, and it takes forever to set up. So by the time you're at this section of the game, this is more for show. If you want to, like, flaunt your E-peen, as it were, you get some blue flamethrower monitors out there. But honestly, if you have no like enemies in the game, there's no reason to build this thing unless you want to just check it out and see what it does. Does it do more damage? Yeah, it does. So this one's at 510% for wooden hulled ships. This one's at 600%. Damage per shot increased to 68 when this one is only at 51. You have a 0.4 second attack speed with that one, and you have the same with this one. With the hulled ships, though, it's gone up to 75%, as opposed to this one, which is just 70%. So the payoff is very minimal. It's not worth the effort to go and put stuff into getting this particular ship. If you want to look at it, that's fine. But apart from that, not worth. So now we come into the actual ship that you are going to want to spam in order to defeat everybody, okay? The battle cruiser. The battle cruiser, it looks cool, okay? And if you have, again, ship skins, there's a bunch for this one. So you have a club skin here, you have the regal, you have the red, you have a battle cruiser type 2070 paying homage to Anno 2070, and then you also have this one. I'm not sure if you can get the 2 million players celebration skin anymore. I'll have to check and figure that out, but normally I typically go with this one. But the cool thing about the battle cruiser is it has 3 item slots for cargo, but then it has 4 item sockets. This is when you optimize these things to high hell and you watch them decimate everything, okay? I have used these ships on a massive, massive degree. If you want to see that, it's in the Anno 1800 Expert Campaign series. These things legitimately decimated every single one of the AI opponents with absolute ease. And I've already brought one of my ships over here that did kind of partake in that war. Most of those ships are currently on patrol duty right now. But you have these specialists, right? So a base battlecruiser is going to dish out 280 damage per shot, okay? With an attack speed of 5.6. Do note that the more ships you make, it impacts your influence. And if you go over here to your military, you can have a 25% maximum attack speed bonus. So this, without that, would probably be around like 6.5 seconds, roughly. But then you have one that is completely optimized. Now, these ones are not even the best items you can get. This setup was given to me by one of my channel subscribers, Torup, of whom is also a governor in my New World territory of Per2. If you guys are new here, do note that I like to RP with this channel, and I like to get as many people involved as possible. So he was actually the one that recommended that we get these particular items. So like this one has damage per shot increase, attack range increase, movement speed, attack speed and range, and then actual damage per shot and accuracy. Accuracy is also a major thing. So right here, you have 406 damage per shot, almost doubling a base battlecruiser of 280, right? And then the attack speed increased to 4.8 seconds. All ships with high explosion risk 160%, and then damage per second being 84, as opposed to this one, which is only 50, right? So this is a ship that you definitely want to optimize going forward, because it'll definitely be the one that'll guard your shores. It will 100% do that, and its radius is pretty substantial as well. So if we click on this one, we can see kind of, if it's possible, I'll tilt the camera, and if you look above where it says Rogue 5, the actual name of the ship, you will see the outline, and the other end of the outline is actually reaching that little island over on the corner in the left. But if we look at the other ship, it's even larger. So not only is this thing actually making it to the island with its radius, it's also going to the exact border of the actual screen on both sides. This thing has a massive range, which pretty much means you can outrange every single island defense in the game, except for one being a Big Betty. I do also want to talk about all of the island defenses, so I'll probably get to that in the next episode. I know I'm kind of doing a little bit of a tangent from building the traditional production buildings and whatnot, but this is the stuff that people really want to see and understand which ships to use when and where, so I really wanted to talk about these. Moving forward, these are not the only military ships the game gives you, though. There are Pyrphorian ships. Pyrphorian ships are essentially flamethrower ships, okay? And again, we do have a Pyrphorian Monitor over here. You're gonna ask me, what in the actual hell is the difference between this little guy and those two over there that have actual flamethrowers going on? Hey, we're talking about a flamethrower ship and a fire is happening in my campaign. That's fantastic. Love to see it. Well, let me tell you what. The main difference here is that they have double the amount of hit points as those, like, paper-thin ships over there. The only downside, though, is that you're going to need to actually do a little bit of planning in order to get Pyrphorian ships. If you go on the Anno wiki, when it comes to getting the specialists for all the Pyrphorian ships, it says that you can purchase them from Karl von Maschen. Karl is a level 2, he's an intermediate AI, but I will tell you that you can probably get them from, like, going on expeditions and such in time. If you do have the Land of the Lions DLC, then you can go ahead and just flat out research them, but that happens way later in your campaign. But the cool thing with the Pyrphorian Monitor is that it does deal a decent amount of damage. The values are the same as in a typical flamethrower monitor, so if we click on this one, 51 damage per shot, and then you also have the 5, 10, and 70. But this one is 55 damage per shot, with a little bit of a speed increase, I think. No, actually, its speed is slower. I'm sorry. Its speed is slower, but the damage per second is a little bit on the higher end. So instead of you using a paper-thin ship to have a flamethrower, you're using this one that has 5,000 hit points. And the cool thing with these ships are you can actually put some decent specialists in them to actually make them tanky, as in hit point inflations. Auto repair would probably work very well on Pyrphorian monitors. The problem, again, is the fact that you're going to have to actually get in very close. And as you can see here, its radius is very, very small. Okay. There are, again, specialists that you can use to make it larger. But again, you only have 2 item sockets and 2 cargo slots. You can utilize the cargo slots to also work on that if you're not planning on using it for any form of transport. But again, that's a lot of unnecessary optimization. So, truth be told, I would avoid using the Pyrphorian Monitor and instead opt to use the Pyrphorian Warship. This thing is kind of like if you were to take a ship of the line, a frigate, and a monitor, put it in one, and make this thing, right? Yes, it does have little gun emplacements on the side, but they don't fire. It's just mostly this flamethrower at the top. But the cool thing is that it has an anti-armor gun in the back. It's kind of hidden, but it's this thingy right over here. So it has a dual purpose, and that's why I would recommend working on getting this one as opposed to the Pyrphorian Monitor, because it'll still have a little bit less when it comes to its flamethrower damage, but it's more versatile. This thing is a lot better to also tank with because it has 6,000 hit points as opposed to only 5,000. As far as its radius is concerned, it is larger because of the gun in the back, but not by much. So you can definitely use specialists like what we have over here to potentially increase its range and all of that good stuff. But the Mac Daddy of Pyrphorian ships is actually the Pyrphorian Battlecruiser. Very similar to that of a typical Battlecruiser. However, you only have flamethrowers. There's 3 of them on this thing, okay? You do not have an anti-armor gun like you have on the Warship on this. Right, and the game just has to tell me that another thing exploded and there are ruins across my cities. I love to see it, you know, just trying to make a guide here, and the game still tells me it hates me. That's just typical. The thing with Pyrphorian battlecruisers as opposed to a typical battlecruiser is 2,000 extra hit points. So these ones, in fact, are probably going to be the best ships to tank with. Why? You have 4 item sockets, and you can indeed get ship hulls, specialists to increase your hit points, auto repairs, and damage. So if you want to focus, for example, you're optimizing, you're going against, I don't know, really expert opponents. They have a lot of harbor defenses. You don't have an air force. They have the capability of outranging you. But you have specialists in these that make them... You can probably get this ship kind of close to 10,000 hit points if you really wanted to, right? With constant repair happening with it and damage reductions, this ship will be able to tank anything, pretty much, that's thrown at it. So your main purpose with this particular ship is not to actually have it dish out damage, which it can do. Your main purpose with this one is to make space for your battle cruisers that are optimized to high hell to come in there and absolutely decimate the entire population, right? Right here, its base damage is 145 per shot, and the attack speed is 2.3. So again, not too bad. Same values as the monitors, not as much as the blue flamethrower monitor, because these ships were in the game from very early on in its lifespan. So the blue flamethrower monitor came out after. But again, it's going to outclass those two original monitors like no tomorrow. Maintenance costs 1,000, which kind of does do a little bit of a punch to the gut, but the actual radius of the ship is not bad either. It's going from that little island over there to like halfway reaching the island over here to the left. But do realize that you can put the specialist in here to extend that range, and it will be effective. It will not only deal damage, it'll also be able to take a lot of damage. I will also show you later on in this video a little Pyrphorian Fleet that I have that is optimized, so you can see that they are effective, but they're only effective at doing like kind of one thing, which is essentially burning a pirate that will not leave me alone to a crisp over and over and over again. One more ship I'd like to discuss, and the reason why I did not put it as part of the cargo ships, is the Great Eastern. The Great Eastern is an iconic ship for Anno. It is one of those that you want to, in my opinion, keep for your expeditions. Why? Yes, it has 8 cargo slots, and it has 3 item sockets. If you do not have the Land Alliance DLC, the way to get a Great Eastern, and you will only be able to get one, okay, is after you build a World's Fair, okay? After the World's Fair, Archie comes over to you and says, my bowels churn afresh, and I must beg your expertise, right? Because he's apparently lost everything in order to build one of these, right? So you go through a little quest chain, and you essentially are providing him with the resources in order to build one of these. So like steam motors, steel beams, stuff like that. If you want like a full breakdown, you can go on the wiki and find it. And essentially at the end of this quest, he will give you a Great Eastern. Do note, though, that if your Great Eastern is lost or you sell it, you can purchase another one from him, but it'll only stay at 1. If you have the Land of the Lions DLC, on the other hand, you're capable of researching Great Eastern permits. What a Great Eastern permit allows you to do is go to your Steam shipyard and actually build another one. So like in my game right here, I have 2 right over here and 1 that's actually transporting some goods. In total, I think in this campaign, I have around 5, right? So you can get more of these things, but this is the one ship that you're not going to be mass producing. You just flat out can't, unless you have the patience of a literal god, which if you do and are that person, please find me and teach me your ways, because I'm not a patient person worth a damn, okay? But the thing about this ship is that it is pretty fast, and I'll go and I'll show you the values at one of the Steamships shipyards in a moment. 6,500 hit points are pretty good, and then you also have the maintenance costs. Obviously, that's 1,000. They don't have like really good skins. They have the heritage skin right over here, and this is like an old version style. I typically just stick with the classic right over here. But let me go ahead and show you. So like if we go back over here to Zerexalon, where we have our Steam shipyards, and we see here the actual Great Eastern has an 11 knot movement speed, and its open seas travel is 100%. Now, when you're doing your expeditions, right? Expeditions don't really need you to care too much about open seas travel. So that's a value that I would just tell you to just push to the side. Loading speed, you're not going to be using this ship for loading and unloading goods. No, absolutely not. You're going to want to focus on this thing either being like showcasing it to show everybody, every single one of your friends, that, hey, I have a Great Eastern, you don't. Or B, to send on your expeditions, which are right here, right? So overall, kind of just like a basic ship. If you want to research it, you have 2 options. If you want to do the lazy route, you can just click on the research points over here, or you can go ahead and find your research institute, go over here to the major discoveries, and then you have the Great Eastern permit right over here, and then you can, like, for example, set it to research a couple times, and once it's done, regardless of which island your scholar or research institute is, it'll actually populate for you over here, right? So the next phase of this is to discuss some of the specialists that you can get in order to build some of these ships. I think in the grand scheme of things, right? The most important one that you're going to want to find is the lady to help you build the Extravaganza Steamers, right? And if we were to go over to the old world, hopefully I'm kind of close to it, which I kind of am. So glad I turned the NPCs off. I also have additional dockyard over here. We have this lady, Anna Union, engineer of extravagant steamers. This is the lady that will help you with building the Extravaganza Steamers. And when you put them into a Harbourmaster, like so, you will find them here. Okay, so like if we were to take her out for a second, it's no longer there. They don't have a passive effect that just because you have the item, you're going to magically see it in your Steam shipyard. No, you legitimately have to put down a Harbourmaster's office, put this lady in there, have the actual radius encompass these ones. The way to check that, again, they will have a glowing blue outline, and you'll be able to click on there and build this thing up. So again, very similar to the cargo ship, except it's just a better, cheaper, and it kind of just looks better, in my honest opinion. You got all those flags and banners on it, it looks pretty sick. Then the most important one, apart from the Extravaganza Steamer, if you do have the Docklands DLC, you're going to want the Deep Blue Ship blueprints. This is to make the world-class Reefer. And this is what I was talking about. The open seas travel speed of 200% is nutty. Let me just show you how that actually is working in this game. These are all world-class reefers going to and from, along with a couple of our oil ships, oil tankers going. So we have ships going to Cape Trelawney over here, from the old world over to the new world, from the new world to Enbeza, and all the way up here to the Arctic. They are just going all over, right? This is the ship to use. It's very fast, and especially in this region, when we touch on in the future, you're going to need ships, and later on airships if you have them, to transport goods in here, because these people, oh my god, they're needy. They are so needy. Then if we go back to Cape Trelawney, where we have the other stuff, in this particular Harbourmaster's office, I do have the 3 specialists that help you build the Pyrphorian ships. Again, in comparison, I would say, like, you're going to want Slinky Sinstra, I think is to say his name, Warlock of Pyrphorian Warships, because, again, the warship is better, along with Suspicious Slyhood, the Begetter Pyrphorian Battlecruisers, because, again, those are better. If you want a complete Pyrphorian fleet, you just are that person. Stillhood Snood, Purveyor Pyrphorian Monitors, that is a freaking miracle that I even was capable of saying that without getting tongue twisted, will allow you to build all 3 variants of the Pyrphorian ships. And they all do require an influence investment, that is a given, and they all require both the steam motors and advanced weapons. That goes for saying for every single one of them. They're all going to need advanced weapons if you want to build any steamship. So apart from that, you know, you have a whole bunch of these things working. I'm going to show you a spot in the Anno 1800 Expert campaign that we're actually utilizing, because I just have some of these ships just patrolling around Xerexalon for RP purposes. But if we go over here to the New World, right, and we head on over here down to this nice little pirate cove, I have a combination of Pyrphorian warships and battle cruisers that are just literally holding this bay, because I'm just stubborn and don't want Jean to take back his island. And as you can see here, I have indeed put the specialists that I have in the battle cruiser that we saw over there, the USS Normandy, into these particular Pyrphorian battle cruisers, and their radius does indeed get a little bit larger. So now it's kind of difficult to see. Let me see if I can tilt the camera. It's kind of going in between that small little island to the far left and the little rocky shores to the immediate right of it. So it does have an increase, along with damage increases. So 210 damage. The values on the damage modifiers do not change. The damage speeds, on the other hand, yes, they do. And the damage per second, 105, is pretty nutty. And as well as the Pyrphorian warships, with these 2 items, you have an increase of 54 damage per shot with 67 damage per second and attack speed bonuses. There are better specialists to get. A way that you can see that, for example, is if you do have this method of the Research Institute, you can go over here and type in Steamships, all Steamships, And you'll see that these are like particular items you can use for them. But if you want to just see everything, you have ship items. So, like, for example, if we wanted to make one of our Pyrphorian battlecruisers ridiculously tanky, we have this guy, Admiral Haynes, which increases the hit points by 1,000. Damage to buildings increases, attack range increase. You also then have this one, the Steel Double Hull, 50% plus hit points, which is crazy. Damage from torpedoes, cannons, and Big Bertha, which Big Bertha is literally the only harbor area item that is capable of outranging even your other ships. It does a lot of damage, but it's a very slow item. This is a fantastic item to get over here. Then you also have Wilma the Wild, attack speed, all that good stuff. You have better cannons, like Strong Arm's Disappearing Gun. And the final spot that you can get like a decent amount of really good ship-related items, if you do have the Sunken Treasures DLC, you can go over here to Old Nate, and you can kind of craft some stuff. Now, crafting is something like, bleh. For me, it's just, I tend to forget it, right? I've forgotten it so much that I literally have set buy orders in my main harbor area over here. If you scroll all the way down, I'm almost maxed out with my basic scrap and nice scrap, and I have a decent amount of special scrap. I'm definitely scrapped. So it doesn't really matter. You can come over here later on. You can always set those to buy, by the way. They'll just automatically come to you. But if you have ship-related items, if you really want to like upgrade your ships to even be even more devastating, you have the Dominator right over here. You can essentially craft this easily with some special scrap, 10 advanced weapons, and some saltpeter, and you can essentially put this to replace the cannon that we had in the USS Normandy. Alternatively, you also have the Jet Propeller Hurricane. So, yeah, if anybody got the reference when I said Hurricane, I will appreciate you for all time. This one obviously is a very good item. Cargo slowdown, damage slowdown means that essentially you have cut out that damage, slowdown, and cargo entirely. The ship will go at its speed, the regular speed, plus 25%. This is actually a really good item to get. It's just difficult to get the scrap. So there are many spots to get items as well. If you go to the old world for your ships, Archie will be the very first person you interact with that will sell you items for your ships. Like you have the exhaust blower right over here for damage slowdown if you choose to like go over here. This one, I wouldn't recommend using a multiple expansion steam engine. Always look to see when activated, because that's something you're going to have to micromanage. You have to activate it, and for the duration of 30 minutes, right, they'll go that fast, right? That's, not really. You can also go into the new world and speak to Isabel, because Isabel also sells you some pretty good stuff for ships, eventually. Trying to see if I can find one right over here. So like these ones are good for like self-repair, but again, this is a on activated particular item. She does have like some passive items where Archie is going to be like your first go-to. Like she also has the heat exchanger right over here for additional hit points and damage slowdown. That's a pretty good item. Another heat exchanger right over there. You have a sail if you're planning on like optimizing your sail ships. That's fine too. And then you also have another expansion engine right over here, but again, on active effect, not that great. There is one last thing I definitely wanted to show you guys, and that is if you are planning on... Actually, you know what? Let me head over to my Scholar Island to actually show you, because it is probably done. There are 2 items that you can get in the game that if you're planning on, let's say, going to war with a particular NPC, and your ships are going through the trade lanes that are impossible to navigate past one of their islands, and you know that if you declare war, some of your ships will be pretty much sacrificed in that war. You can go ahead and either find or purchase a white flag, which the white flag essentially means it's a ship item. When you put this in, a little flag starts to rotate above your ship, which pretty much means this ship cannot be targeted for an attack, regardless of whether your ship is actually at war, your faction at war with that other person's faction. The other one is a great white flag, which the difference between these two is trade prices. The only way that the trade prices are actually going to be useful is if you're going to an NPC to trade. Apart from that, like just having the white flag is a pretty good one. It activates permanent peace mode. So if we were to go over here and get this item and put it into this Great Eastern, and we drag it to the item socket, we now have a little flag on the top, and it says peace mode. So at that point, you will know that this, for example, this Great Eastern is safe from any and all attackers. The only way for this to change is if you manually remove this, okay? Apart from that, you will be safe and secure. So hopefully that was a good introduction into the steamships, the different steamships, which ones to get, which ones not to get, or rethink. But again, I would just like to reiterate that this is something that you yourself have to explore, and really, the game is really about having fun. Whatever your playstyle is, if you want to burn everything to the ground, if you want to burn it to the ground, you literally take every single one of these Pyrphorian ships and you decimate the entire population. You literally burn everything to a crisp. If you just want the traditional route, you have the traditional battle cruisers, you have some monitors. They all work just as fine, some better than the others. If you want to go on the basic trade, you can have cargo ships if you don't care much about how long they take to go in between the regions, and if you don't have docklands, cargo ships are just fine. Extravaganza steamers are always going to be better. If you do not have the docklands DLC, I would still opt for you to try to get the Extravaganza steamers anyway, because that is a little bit better when it comes to the maintenance costs, and that is something you're really going to have to pay attention to going forward. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really did. Ships are definitely one element of Anno 1800 that I absolutely adore, right? And teaching people about how to use what ships and when to do so, it just makes it even more worthwhile. Along with all your comments and support on these particular videos, it means the world to me. So until next time, my friends, thank you so much. If you have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any question that you have. Apart from a basic life decision, in which case I'm not a shrink yet, so I can't help you on that front. And to be perfectly honest with you, I would also need to be in the chair as well. I have a lot of stuff going on. Just kidding. So, until next time, my friends, please consider like, commenting, subscribing, hitting that bell button, sharing it with your friends, and I will catch you in the next episode, my Rantians.